Hello everyone, and welcome to another video tutorial on normalization. As we said earlier, we mentioned that normalization can actually be done within a shorter period. Again, maximum of 5 minutes, you'll be able to normalize a table. All right, so to do that, we're going to go over the rules that I proposed or gave. So the first rule says that we need to achieve 1NF. That means to remove duplicate rows and ensure that every column contains an atomic value. Next, you move to identify functional dependencies between the table. That means you need to analyze relationship between fields and determine which field is dependent on the other. Then we move to decomposing the table. That means we going to second and F and third and that is what this decompose basically means. So when you are going to second and F and third, it means that you are splitting up the tables into first and F or second and F. All right, then after you decompose a table, there's a need to create a relationship between those two tables, and so that is what we intend to do. So first of all, we mentioned that you need to achieve 1NF. Now what exactly are the rules for 1NF? So first of all, we mentioned that a table that is in the first NF has no repeating fields, and then again all fields contains atomic values, and then each record in the database must be unique, and there should be primary keys within each record or for each record. All right, so having mentioned this, let's go to the question that we have. This question was taken from the Cambridge AS level textbook, and the tax number here is 10AE, right? So we need to examine this fields here and see exactly what we have, okay? So if we look at these fields carefully, we will notice that we have student's name, house, and then courses. So let's begin with students. Now, when we check the student field, we notice that we have the same name here. So this student here called Jane Smith is the same person we are seeing here. So let's examine this further to see if they are exactly the same student or these are different students. So if we look at the houses of the students, we notice that this student here, Jane Smith, is living in a house called York, and then we have Jane Smith living in a different house called Endebeck. And it cannot be that we have one student living in two separate houses. That's not possible. So this suggests to us that in this database, we have students in one class that have or bear the same name, but they live in different houses. So this means that this student here is actually different from that student, right? So that is the first identification we've made in this table. Again, this student field is not atomic in nature. So according to the rule for normalization, this needs to be split to 1NF. So we're going to do just that. So we're going to say no fill, and then no fill for this, and then the same as that. All right, so we're going to split this here into so we're going to make this here atomic by splitting the field. So I go and select everything there, go to data. From data I go to text to columns, make sure my selector is on delimited, and then I go to next. So to get atomic values, first of all, you need to split this into first name and last name or surname. So I'm going to split this here into two. So I go to text to columns, data, text to column, make sure you're on delimited, and then we go to next. From next, we notice that we have spaces between this value, so we select space, and that is all. But we notice that we have an extra name here. That's the surname for Jet Li. Moving on to the next field, so that's why I made an extra field here to accommodate that. So I move on to click on finish. However, this name will be attached to this here as the surname. So that is it for surname. So I'll delete this field here. Now, again, if we look at the course field, we notice that the course field is not atomic in nature because it contains the subject here, the name of the teacher, and the room. And then they have again another subject, name of a teacher, room, and the subject name of a teacher, room. So again, we need to split this field here into an atomic field. So we go to text to column, make sure we are on delimited, and go to next. In here, if we look at the characters carefully, we notice that the fields are separated by comma, okay, and then we have semicolon. So I click on other and put in the semicolon. So then we have to take out space. That's what we use for the first one now. So we notice that we have the name of the course, the name of the teacher, the room, and I click on finish. All right, so I'm going to just make sure I label each of them as due. So this is the course. I'll name this as teacher and just this as room number. And I move on to the next one here, which is the subject. So it's the same as course, so we can leave it as course. And then here we have again the name of the teacher and then the room number. Then again, we have the course right there, the name of the teacher. And then the room number. All right. So once we've done this, we notice that this here now have atomic values. But if we go back to the rules of normalization, it mentioned that a database in 1L has no repeating fields. So if we look here, we notice that these fields here are repeating. We have this here repeating. So we need to make room for this here by creating an extra space right down there so that we have the name of the students coming down after each other so that we cater for that first rule of 1NF. So what I'm going to do here is, since I have Jane Smith studying 3 courses, I'm going to just put in extra 2 spaces here and then repeat Jane Smith and the house in which she is, and then fill in here as 2. Now, so since the teacher room number for this is fine, what I'm going to do is to cut this here and then bring it down there, and then cut this there and bring it down here. So once I do that, I have made use of the first rule here that says that there shouldn't be repeated fields. Okay, so the same way I noticed that there Rukasana is also doing 3 courses. So again, I need to provide 2 extra spaces here, repeat her name and the house in which she lives in these 2 spaces in here, and then make sure I fill the remaining fields with their respective values. This student here is doing 2 courses, so just going to do that the Jamal. Make sure we have this, copy that, and then we copy the subject and bring it below here. All right, and then finally we have Jet Li. And again we insert and then bring the name right down there, and then again we bring the subject that Jet Li is doing below as such. We didn't copy the house, so I'll bring the house right there. Okay, so once I've done this here, I have achieved 1F partially. Looking at this here, this table here doesn't have a primary key. There's no primary key in this table. And since this table here is talking about students, it's appropriate we input in here a primary key for student and then for the course. So I'm going to put in here students ID, and here I'm going to put in here course ID. All right, so here I'm going to give the student an ID, so I'll do T for ST for student, right? So ST 01 for Jane Smith. And looking through, I have Jane Smith repeated 2 more times here, so I duplicate that. Now I move on to the next student, who is Roxana. All right, so Roxana will be ST02, and since she's also repeated 2 times, I'll do that right there. I'll just copy and paste right there. Okay, then we come to the next person, that is Jamal. So ST04 and 03, and Jamal is also here again, so S3 ST03. Jet appears 2 times, so ST04 will be repeated 2 times, ST04. Then here we mentioned earlier on that Jane Smith is different from this Jane Smith here because they are not the same people. And we identify that because we notice that the house in which this Jane Smith lives in is different from that there. So this here will have a different ID as ST05. Okay, next we come to the courses and see the possible ID to give this course. So here again, I can do computer. So just C01. Okay. So computer here has been taught by Mr. Brown. And then if you come down again here, Mr. Brown, the same computer science. So I'll do the same code right there. And that is it for computer science. When we come to maths, we have I do 01 again, and I have to look for maths. This same person is teaching maths, so the same code right there. If you look at this, this is a different teacher teaching math in a different room, and it's different from that. So we'll give this maths here a different course ID as MO02. And since it's the same person here, this is also M02. All right. And so we are done with maths. Then we move on to statistics. Statistics here, we'll do ST. And let's check statistics here. We'll do ST01. No, if we do ST01, that here will be similar to what we have for student ID. So we just do SS. SS01, and that is for Miss White. And if we look through again, we have another Miss White here, so SS01 for that. Then we move to business. So B is okay, 01. So B01 is taught by just one person here. Then we move on to science. So I'll do SC, and SC here taught by the same teacher, so MC01, and then SC01 again should be repeated here. All right, so now we are done with this course code and we are done with the student ID. Then we can now conclude that we have achieved 1NF. Okay, so after we have achieved 1NF, the next item is to identify functional dependencies in this table. And once we identify functional dependency, we'll move on to decompose the table. Okay, so looking through this student's table, this here is a course ID. And this course ID uniquely identify each student within this database, right? So ST01 is Jane Smith, and living in New York, and we notice that the only item that is functionally dependent on the student ID here will just be this first few parts of the table. So I'm going to copy this here. I'm actually going to copy all this into a different Excel sheet because we have other work that we've done there, right? So just paste it right there. Make it a little bigger, right? Okay, so what I mentioned is that this field here is only functionally dependent on the field student ID is functionally dependent on this 3. So I'm going to copy this and bring it to a new sheet or a new table as I've done right. So okay, now so after I have done that, I need to identify the primary key in here. So this is the table that is the child table. In other words, the table that is copied from the parent table. So I'm going to remove duplicates from this table by going to data and then remove duplicates, and then I remove duplicate. Now, when I do that, I notice that I have 5 students or 5 records in this particular table. So what it means is that we have to delete this here, which is not going to be needed again, which is not going to be needed again. So we delete this here. And then this here will serve as the key, the foreign key to link this table to that table. All right. So we are done with the first part of breaking the table apart into second and F. Okay. Now we move on to identify the next functional dependency. So again, if we look through again, we notice that the course ID fetch out uniquely the courses that we have here. So course ID, computer, and we have the same here, and it's being taught by the same teacher in the same room. And if you look at maths again, here Miss White teaching again Miss White here in the same room. So obviously we notice that this here is also functionally dependent on each other. So I'm going to just copy this, go to another table, and then I paste that. If you have some issues with functional dependency, I have an earlier video that explains the functional dependency. So I encourage you to go and watch that particular video. Okay, to a new field here, we copy them and bring them to a new table. All right. So once you do that, the next thing to do is to remove duplicates. So I'll select everything here, go to data, remove duplicates, and then do that. All right. So once I'm done, I notice that I'm left with some 6 records right here. Then I move straight to check here, remove other fields that are not primary keys in here. So once I do that, I notice that this table and that table here are basically the link table between this table and that table. So I label this as link table. All right. And this here is for students. So this is labeled as student. Now, when we come to this here, this last table, we want to check if there are any functional dependencies. Right. So if we look through here, we notice that there are no repetitions as far as the course and the course ID and the course is concerned. But if we look at the teacher table, we notice that there are some duplicates in here. So here, Miss White is giving me the same room here. Miss White is giving me this room here. So it tells me that there's a functional dependency on this. So I'm going to copy this here and bring it to a new table here. Right, paste it right there. So once you bring it in here, you have to remove duplicate. So I go to that and remove duplicate. So once I do that, I notice that this table here do not have any duplicate. However, this field here is not a primary key. So this table doesn't have a primary key. And to obey the law of normalization, you need to have 1NF all the way to 3NF. So first of all, the table needs to be in 1F, it should be in 2nd NF, and it should be in 3rd NF. And what it means is that you have to check for each table if there's a primary key in that. So satisfying the rule of 1NF. 2nd NF, you want to check if 1NF is satisfied and there's no partial dependency. Now, the part about partial dependency is that if you have a composite key or a compound key, that is what you'll be thinking about partial dependency. But if you look through the table and there's nothing like a compound key or a composite key, then it means the table is automatically in the 3rd NF. So this table here is in the 3rd NF. So all we need to do is to provide a teacher ID. So here we're going to provide a teacher ID by putting T01 for Mr. Brown, and then T02 for the next person. And since they are continuous, we just replicate that to 5. Okay, so this table here is now normalized to the third NF. Now, if we look here, this table here, we need to move these two items here, but then there should be a link between this table and that table because we copied these items here from this table here. So we need to bring the teacher ID into this table. Okay, so once we have established that, the next thing to do is to use a formula to bring up the teacher ID in this. So again, I'm going to use the XLOOKUP. All right, so XLOOKUP. Now I'm using the XLOOKUP because it's a more powerful lookup tool to use compared to the lookup, the VLOOKUP or the VLOOKUP. And there are some issues with the lookup that we'll look up later when we're doing Excel. So I'm going to use this as a lookup value. And when I go to this table, I notice that this here is exactly where I have rooms. So I lock this table, go to comma, and then what do I want as a result? I want the teacher ID as a result. So again, I select this and lock that. Now, if I don't have what I'm looking for, I put a space and I want the exact match and I hit enter. So we notice that the teacher, Mr. Brown, has the ID T01. So let's confirm it that is true. So Mr. Brown T01. So what we're going to do is that we're going to replicate this formula. Okay. Now, because we need to delete these two fields here, we need to copy this answers and paste it as a value. Right now, if you don't paste it as a value, what will happen is that when I delete, for example, if I delete these two fields here, it's going to give me a reference error. So you see, that's a reference error, and that's not going to give me the teacher ID. So what you have to do is copy this item here, and then you paste as a value. See, so once you paste this as a value and delete this field here, it doesn't affect the result. Okay, so if you look through, now we have this here in the third NF, and that is related to the teacher. So I'll name this as teacher. And if I look at this is referred to as, this information has, this information is related to the course. So I'll label this as course. All right. So they bring us to the end of the exercise on normalization. This is our results. So you have 4 tables, the link table, linking this to the student table and the course table. And then again, this here is linked to the teacher table. And so that brings us to the end of this video tutorial. In our next tutorial, I'm going to be looking at all past questions that we have on normalization, and I will take you through all of them, normalizing each of them as we progress gradually. All right, so at this point, I encourage you to subscribe, like the video, let me have some comments on what you think about this video. And so till we meet again, bye-bye.